Hello and welcome back to the SimTech podcast, the show where we dive deep into the world of clinical simulation, one conversation at a time. I'm your host Craig, and today we're exploring an area of simulation that's often overlooked but incredibly important: bariatric patient care. In this episode, I'm joined by Jake from Simulation Collective to talk about the R42 Bariatric Manikin, a high-fidelity training tool designed to bring realism, representation, and functionality to bariatric simulation scenarios. From the design process and training applications to the engineering challenges and the feedback from the frontline educators, we unpack what makes the R42 a game changer for sim centres looking to be more inclusive and practical. So whether you're a SimTech, educator, or just passionate about improving healthcare training, grab a cuppa and let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the SimTech podcast. Today we're going back into a Supplier showcase and we're bringing back someone that has already been on the show. Welcome back, Jake.
Hello, Craig. Good to see you again.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming back. That means I mustn't have traumatized you too much from your last experience. You must have almost enjoyed it.
No, I've had a couple of months to get over it. Thanks very much.
So that's the line in the sand. Couple of months, and then we can come back to the next one. Right, good to know. Jake, for those that didn't catch the first episode, do you want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction?
Yeah, so my name's Jake Rahman. I'm the founder and owner of a company called Simulation Man, who operates as Simulation Collective. We've turned into the Simulation Collective because essentially what I wanted to do was bring lots of innovative small companies together and sell their products. Really, the Simulation Collective and what we do is sort of operating between the lines of the other companies. We want to supply people with innovative products that otherwise might not think about and might not be presented with on a daily basis. And it's really interesting that there are other companies that are sort of jumping on the innovation bandwagon now. But really, the reason why I did it was because I'm obsessed with innovation. I'm obsessed with simulation, obsessed with innovation. And the reason why I'm passionate about innovation, and it's quite clear, is because it's not made me rich. And and so it's not a marketing ploy. We are interested in those innovative products and companies and helping design stuff and cooperate with people to make simulation better.
Brilliant, and that kind of brings us on to what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about the R42 Bariatric Manikin. So do you want to tell us what it is?
Yeah, so the R42 Bariatric Manikin is something that was developed around about nearly 2 years ago. The idea was first born. It came about from a random email, actually, my wife sent out because we're a small company. She sent out some emails to customers and just asking if we could help them in any way. And Liz Moores from Aston University got in contact with us and said, you know, what about a bariatric mannequin? Do you know of any bariatric mannequins that are available on the market for nursing? And I said, well, yeah, I do. Let's have a look at them together. So what we did is we Googled what was out there. We had a look around. And to be quite honest, it wasn't very flattering with regard to, larger, oversized people. Some of them were literally sacks with a plastic face stuck on the front. And both Liz and I think we got a little bit offended as to what was available on the market because as we see in every simulation center up and down the country, we have beautiful size 8, size 10 female mannequins represented by 20-something women, which you will not see in ICU and you won't see in operating theatres mostly sort of on the whole, really. And that's what simulation has been obsessed with the past 30 years, really, trying to make beautiful mannequins that don't represent patients.
Yeah.
And
What's funny there, Jake, is our sim mum's broke, so the only female mannequin we've got is Sim Man with a wig on. So
yeah,
he is, he's a 20 stone rugby player
yeah.
with a decent jawline, and he has this wig on. And sometimes we have it's a little bit of a reflection period where we're saying, look, we're high fidelity here. This is what we do, and then we look and we say, actually, we've got a sim man with a wig on here.
Yeah.
Is this really the best we can do? You know.
Well, I hate to break it to you, Craig, but you haven't got a female mannequin at all. So Sim Mum is not female.
No.
Sim Mum is a male ALS mannequin from Lairdale with a female face on it, and that's why the old Sim Mum, the original one, that's why it's got that male jawline. Because it was an ALS mannequin that was put together with the prompt mannequin from Limbs and Things, and that's what created Sim Mum. So it was a male mannequin turned female.
Well, we no, we like to say we're quite a modern centre, and all of our mannequins can be whatever they want. That's how we go with it today. But as far as bariatric mannequins go, I've never seen any apart from like conferences and stuff.
Mm.
And as the closest I've ever got to anything like that is a suit that sometimes they make me wear. It's quite a fluffy, very warm suit, which
Yeah.
no one's ever going to see those pictures. Um, but it is
Yeah.
it is quite a is it a quite a niche uh, market for bariatrics, or do
Well,
enough people want these kind of things?
Well, you'd think it was niche. So initially, when and we'll talk about the specification for it in just in a moment. But initially, when we looked at the market and first when it came to the sale, and we had the production models ready to go out there and to be sold. I was thinking, yes, okay, you've got 10 beautiful nursing mannequins that are in beds on wards. And there is certainly a place for one bariatric mannequin amongst them. But when you look at the stats out there, and that's why we called her R42, R42 is a representation of 42% of the US population who are considered overweight or obese. Okay. And the reason why we called her R42 is because I didn't want to call her Carol, Jenny, Mary, or something like that. Because back in the old days, these things became a point of ridicule when you had a name for something that you felt was different or not quite right. You call your mates it, and or you call a patient it, or something like that. So we thought we would go with R42 because it really does show actually what the need is for a bariatric mannequin. And so that one space amongst 10 beautiful looking size 8 mannequins was what we were aiming for. But in reality, in the UK, for instance, 38% is the number. In reality, you should have 3 or 4 mannequins amongst 10 that are representing obese or bariatric people, within your simulation ward. So actually, yes, I thought it was quite niche, quite small, but it's not. And also on the other side as well, if we think about a bariatric or obese patient, and respectfully, there is more risk from a clinical point of view, but not just a clinical point of view, from a safe movement and an escort of a patient through the hospital, if you like. And there's also a higher risk from infection. There's higher risk for sort of from an airway and resuscitation point of view. There's higher risk from infection within post-surgical wounds. There's higher risk of injury, even nerve injury, in the shoulders and arms when patients' arms are being moved around and things like that. And of course, you've got risk of bed sores. Now, when we practice in healthcare simulation, whether it's nursing or medical, depending on who buys an R42, we should always be preparing for the worst case scenario. So immediately, having a bariatric mannequin gives you the opportunity to train and prepare for the worst case scenario every time. And that's why I think she's more relevant than just having and I say this with the greatest respect to trigger people, a fat mannequin. She's much more relevant to just having a big lady around, and that's why I think she's special.
Is she accurate to weight then? Is she as heavy as a real person would be at that size?
Well, we did discuss this. We spoke about this with Simtex, and we spoke about it just with simulationists, up and down the country. We spoke to quite a few, and the immediate thought was, yes, let's make her really heavy. And then when we looked at it logically, and especially the Simtex, because Simtex are practical people, okay, um, uh, we sort of said, well, actually, it doesn't need to be that weight, does it? And Simtex said no, because we're less likely to use it and less likely to move it around. And of course, with directors in the NHS and elsewhere and around the world, over 50 kilograms, you'd have to do a risk assessment before you even moved her. So what we've done is we've kept her around 48 kilograms. The guys from Rib Productions managed to make her in a way that she's quite light, but she represents somebody of a certain size. Um, but we can add more weight to her on request in her legs and arms. And let's be honest, when a patient's muscle relaxed, the legs and arms are the ones that are at risk, especially when you're positioning a patient on an operating table. Again, you drop an arm, you could have nerve damage, the weight of them as well. Potentially a healthcare assistant, a whole team. Let's think about the whole team. A healthcare assistant might be holding that arm while somebody's running it down the corridor looking for an arm board because the orthopedic theatre has nicked it. And that's a scenario. And so you've got potential injury for the healthcare assistant from a back point of view. You've also got potential injury to the patient if the arm's dropped or something else happens. So these are the type of scenarios that we want to see above and beyond just if you like, standard medical scenarios that you can do with R42. So yes, weight can be added, and she can truly represent somebody of size. But the other thing about back injury as well, if you want to, think about that as part of the scenario, the actual physical weight. Often, it's not the weight of a patient that causes that injury. It's the overstretching over the top of the patient. So overstretching. So, for instance, removal of a diaphragm pad. Sometimes people come in from the other side and try and roll the patient over to remove the diaphragm pad. That overstretching is often the thing that ruins backs and causes injury and causes risk. And that's just simply from a moving and handling side. Forget about the medical and nursing side of it.
Yeah. Who or how did you go through like the design process? Because you said you didn't want to name her, but you must have decided on like a face. I mean, how do you decide what they're
Yeah.
going to look like in the face?
So originally, with Liz Moore. So originally we decided that she was going to be a Southeast Asian lady to represent people from Birmingham around Aston University. There are a lot of Asian people around there, as we know. So we went on the search for a model for an Asian lady that would model for us, so we could do this. It didn't go too well. Bearing in mind, my name is Rahman. So Rahman is probably the biggest Muslim name you can get, or one of them. Okay, means the son of the merciful one, by the way. So I asked a lot of my Asian friends if they knew anybody that would model. It didn't go down too well, and,
No.
and there are still a couple of them that won't speak to me even to this day. So with Isaac Franklin, the head of development for Rib Productions, we decided that we would go for a Caucasian lady to start off with. The head of R42 is actually a lady that lives not so far away from me in Andover, around this area, and the body was actually a scan for computer games. So it was a scan that could be bought for computer games. It was altered quite a lot, okay? And the original scan was a lady who was around about 6 foot tall, about 6'1". She was hugely tall lady. So what they did, they made her shorter, and they used the head of the lady from Andover, who represents a 45-year-old woman, and yeah, obese 45-year-old lady, white lady. However, just an update, there is a geriatric version now who is Afro-Caribbean, represents an Afro-Caribbean lady, and that's available on the market. We've delivered the first ones into the US with the partners out there in Estonian, and into the UK as well. And so we're trying to not only look at diversity with size, we're trying to look at ethnicity as well. And the whole design of R42 has now sort of spawned a family of simulators that Rib Productions are making. So we partner with Rib Productions. I came up with the idea with Aston University. They made it fantastic, and because of that, if you like, that kick to make R42, it's actually had some really good results, because there will be some other mannequins based on the design of R42 that will be coming out. And just to mention as well, R42 is what I would say the world's first totally 3D printed mannequin. Okay, apart from the skin, which is obviously silicon, but the inner is 3D printed, and that means things can be changed really, really quickly. Now there is a patent pending on the way that she's made, and doing something with 3D print means that if the guys at Rib Productions need to change something, because I say, look, okay, yesterday we had a call with somebody about some modifications on her and updating her. Fantastic call, somebody really embraced R42 and thought it was a great idea, but she needs a bit of this and she needs a bit of that. And to be able to do that with 3D printing is much, much easier than your traditional methods of making patient simulators or mannequins. And that's the most exciting thing for within this whole process, that she will evolve with time.
Yeah, it's nice to hear you telling us about how it's created, because we spoke to companies like Lifecast, and they generally just use people as like body molds, so I've never heard of
Mm.
it being done 3D printed. Just to clear things up, you have nothing to do with Lifecast, because people could easily make a kind of a misconception that the R42 looks and probably feels like a life cast or a Symbodies mannequin. This is
Yeah.
purely your thing that you guys are doing. It's not to do with anybody else.
Yeah. So absolutely nothing to do with Lifecast at all. I think Lifecast, what they've done was pioneering with regard to making mannequins look more realistic. We looked at Lifecast and we looked at what they did, and how good it was. But what we wanted to do, and the guys from Rib actually did it really, really well, was create something that was lifelike, that was easy to articulate, move around, and a bit more. And I've got to be respectful when I say this, a bit more durable to the needs of modern healthcare training. So there was a compromise made on the skin. The skin looks incredibly realistic, but it's harder than a life cast mannequin, so it's a bit more durable. Okay, and the reason why skins and lifelikeness with regard to silicon are soft, the more lifelike they get, is because of the oil they contain. Okay, so there was an actual compromise of, yes, we need to make it look lifelike, but we still need to have a durable, because people are going to move around a lot, especially when it comes to airways, when it comes to elbows, when it comes to bending with legs, articulation. R42 can be put into a lithotomy position. She could also go into a McRoberts position at a push. Okay, Her arms can be fully extended. She can touch her nose. She can be proned. So if you're doing a COVID scenario, you could actually put her on her tummy and prone her and put both arms above her head. And that was something that was included in the spec that we wanted to achieve, and Isaac and his team achieved it really, really well. And that's what separates us from the live cast mannequins. But not only from the live cast mannequins, it also separates us from other more established long-term mannequins as well. And again, I say this with the greatest respect, but it's only about 4 or 5 years since Sinman 3G was given bendy arms, because people do have bendy arms. They
Yeah.
do.
You need to get them dressed. If they don't bend their arms, you can't get them dressed.
Exactly.
So do your mannequins have any internal parts, or are they purely just cosmetic?
Well, so essentially the way R42 is built in a modular way. So any of the internal parts can be filled with other things as well and changed within there. So when we first launched her, it was in November 2023 at ASPE. We showed the first one. And then by 2024, last year, we were selling them. Her features were, yes, her size. She had a difficult airway, grade 1 or grade 2, so you have an option of that. She had some bed sores on her heels. She had a full panis and an apron, tummy that could be moved around and held, especially when you're doing catheterization, which you can do on her as well. You will get some flashback from a catheterization point of view. And a few other features on her, with the way she looked. But since then, because of a modular sense, she's had a chest compression unit put inside her. So you can do chest compressions. She's got a stoma site as well. And she's got IV arms that could be added to her, which are, of course, obese IV arms. Okay. These are IV arms with IVs in situ. But there is going to be a task trainer for IV arms for obese people as well. That's going to be a spin-off from her. And she's having more features added to her as time goes on. When I originally wrote the spec, which I presented to Isaac and I presented to Liz, it did have electronics in there. But the feedback that we got from people is, again, I've got to be respectful here, is that because of the problems that electronics have caused in assimilation over the years, when we told people there was no electronics in there, it didn't really matter. So people were quite happy with that. And that's why people love the life cast mannequins so much, because they're lifelike. You can use an eye simulator or skill cube or whatever, and you can still run those scenarios. It's exactly the same with R42. So we left out the electronic side of it, but guess what? She's a bariatric mannequin. She's quite a big lady. That means if electronics come in the future as a modular sense, there are plenty of space. So everything is future-proofed in her to update her as time and money happens to do that. Now, yes, we are looking for more funding if people want to come in and add more things to her. We're really happy to listen. We had a conversation yesterday about it, and of course, it will be Rib Productions that do that. But yeah, she's all set to be updated, and that's the amazing thing about her. You won't have to wait 10 years until your one dies, and then you get a new one to get the latest and greatest.
Yeah, I like the thought of it being modular, mainly for, even if things get broken or damaged. I mean, how do we go about repairing something then if something tears or breaks? I mean, for instance, if it was a live cast, we'd just generally use sul proxy ourselves to
Yeah.
essentially glue it. Is it the same with this?
Yeah, you can do that. Obviously, there'll be a warranty on the skins, but you can repair it yourself. And the guys from the workshop, and we know lots of people that can help out with that as well and give guidance if Simtex want to repair themselves. The rest of the parts in her, screws, bolts, everything like that, is anything inside it, the actual 3D printed itself, can be sourced from your local B&Q. They use standard size parts are used in her, And that was another amazing thought from the guys at Rib Productions with regard to sustainability. So if you do need to repair things, if a bolt breaks or something like that, you can just go and get one from the local hardware store and repair her. The other thing that is being done as well, for instance, the 3D print designs of the teeth, Rib Productions are quite happy to give them away. So you can print your own teeth, you can make your own, you can change them if you want to. Little things like that, as time goes on, are going to become more and more apparent. And the idea is so she becomes self-sufficient over time with regard to repairs. And just to labour on the 3D printing side of it, because she's 3D printed, and the type of filament they use, it's completely recyclable. So if one comes back to the workshop and it's broken, or you want to swap it out for a new one over time, that filament can be repurposed and reused to build a new one. And that was part of the sustainability side. I don't know if people remember in 2023 at ASPE, but what we did, we made the whole set out of cardboard. Okay. ASPE said they wanted to highlight sustainability, so we did it. We made it out of cardboard. We showed what we could do with a bit of creativity, with materials that could be recycled, and that's what we're trying to do overall with the companies that we work with.
What did you do for your eyes? Is it eyes open or eyes closed?
You've got a choice of eyes open or eyes closed.
That's good, because it's one of
Yeah.
the things I've always kind of hated about live cast. I know there's a few techs out there that are brave enough to chop the eyelids off and retrofit them onto their mannequins, which it blows me away that I'm not that brave. But yeah, it always feels weird
What?
when maybe you want them to talk and they've got their eyes
Yeah.
closed.
Yeah. We're not talking about Simtex chopping off their own eyelids, are we? Because that wouldn't
No,
be right.
we
No.
use someone else's, obviously.
Okay. All right. Yeah, just checking.
What kind of feedback are you getting off of people that are using it?
We're getting some incredible feedback. So again, what it does, it brings the opportunity for scenarios in different places. So when we first started showing her around, there was lots of scenarios in operating theatres, and which gives us an opportunity for whole team simulation. So anybody from the escort nurse that brings them down from the ward, to healthcare assistants, to anaesthetists, to bariatric surgeons doing placement or post-surgery scenarios, to operating department practitioners. So everybody can get involved in a theatre scenario with R42. But when we sold them into Sheffield Hallam, for instance, it was really interesting because it was a physiotherapist that took the most, whose ears pricked up the most when we took her in and showed her. So by the time we'd delivered them, they'd already built loads of scenarios that she could be used for. She would go in a hoist, for instance, and that's really, really important to bring in other types of specialities or team members within the scenario. And of course, on top of that, it's your basic nursing scenarios. So cleaning patients, identifying wounds, identifying sores, being sensitive. When I was working in Southampton General years ago, actually, it was at Bupa when I'd moved across the road to Bupa at Chailey Beat Hospital, and it was a private hospital, but they did the first Roux-en-Y cases, the first bariatric cases. And one time, I reached over and rolled a patient slightly, and one of my colleagues took off a diaphragm pad, and half of the skin came with it because that patient had a bed sore. And these are things, scenarios you can prepare for with a bariatric mannequin, identifying problems that might not be picked up in the patient care pathway when it gets to theatres. And also other interesting scenarios from an infection control point of view. What we found as well, respectfully again to the bariatric patients out there, a part of the patient care pathway was for the patient to be showered within their room. They come down and shower themselves and come into theatre. Invariably, that didn't happen. Okay, they didn't have an inadequate enough shower, so it then became an infection control risk. So that's another point into the scenario that we could bring into it. There's so many different elements that she can be used for, and just apart from the basic safe handling and moving of patients, there's many, many more.
All right. Hardest question of the morning. How
Yeah.
much does it cost?
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, loads of money costs absolutely loads of money. No, cheap as chips. Well, listen, I went into a before I discuss the price. Okay, I just want to say
Oh,
that.
this is a sales
Say
pitch now. We've
I
turned
set
it.
up. Yeah. No, and and I went into an establishment yesterday, and I've been into a number of establishments recently. And I walked into there, and I saw equipment that was purchased a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. None of it had been used. Still, some of it was still in boxes. Some of it was still there. Hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of equipment, and I've done this a number of times recently. Okay, and it's they haven't got the curriculum right to use it. They haven't got the staff to use it. They haven't been given the training. They've purchased it because they were told that's what you need for this particular course. Okay, now, an R42 bariatric mannequin in that same situation can be used by everybody within a university or within their college to demonstrate something. You don't need training. You need, a little bit of orientation, but that's it. It can be adapted into a curriculum, really, really, really quickly. And of course, it's got that wow feature. Oh, we've got a bariatric mannequin there, and she looks realistic, fantastic, wow. And so what we charge for the bariatric mannequin is about £29,000. Okay. If you want a chest compression unit, it's a bit more expensive, but it's something that could be used immediately. And with the amount of money that I perceive perhaps hasn't been wasted, but has not been implemented properly, or it's going to be implemented over years rather than months or days. I think she's very good value for money for that, and she's going to last people 5, 10 years and be able to be updated as she gets new features and modules on her.
Yeah, I mean, compared to other models, it's almost half the price of some.
Yeah.
So it is quite reasonably priced. I was kind of expecting a little bit more, to be fair. Maybe you're undercharging people. Who knows?
Well, yeah, okay, we'll talk about that later. But it was you heard it from here. Craig said we're undercharging people,
Quick,
so we're going
add
we're
on
going to
another
think about
zero.
that. So, well, I mean, so it is interesting, how much is a product worth. Well, the thing about R42 bariatric mannequin is she doesn't come out of a injection mold. Okay, there are people pulling her out of molds, working in a workshop, 3D printing, sometimes very, very late at night, overnight, putting her together, real artists involved for every single one that's made, that will do the finishing touches on her, that will punch the hair, do the eyebrows, um, uh, you know, real people that are doing this activity. So she's a bit more labor intensive than your mannequins that will, you know, on large come out of injection molds and be assembled. And I think she's worth the money. And especially now we represent different sizes, different ethnicities. I think she's certainly worth the money, and she's got a wonderful story behind her as well, how she was developed. And the most important thing about mannequins and about simulators, in my opinion, is humanizing them. You know, she's got a human element behind her. She's got a reason why she's developed. She sits amongst, all these beautiful looking mannequins that represent skinny people, and she represents somebody real, as far as I'm concerned, and that's what's most attractive about this product.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, even as myself walking into a conference full of various mannequins and models, she always stands out. You can mainly because you can see her from very far away. But just walking past her, you always draw a crowd to her, don't you? Because she's something to look at, really. And people
Yeah,
love.
absolutely.
So where can people see it if they want to get some eyes on it? Are you going to any conferences, or what about a demo or anything like that?
Well, but I'm going to be at SASAM. I'm going to be there with Rib Productions actually, and also meeting our partners from around the world, hopefully, who are now selling her. So around the world, we've got distributors in Portugal, in the Baltics, in Poland, in Italy, so on and so on. We're establishing more partners to sell her. In November, we will of course be at ASPE. And we're going to have some fun at ASPE, which is going to be great. It's ASPE is in Bournemouth this year, which is the closest ASPE to my office. So we're going to have some fun there this year. But if anybody wants to see her, we can do a online demonstration. No problem. So all people have to do is go to www.simulationcollective. Book an online demonstration, or just pick up the phone and give us a call. Our telephone number's on there. You can email me direct, jake@simulationcollective.com, or if you want to go to our customer services, which is not a robot, it represents our robot as our logo. It's hellohester@simulationcollective.com, and you can book a demonstration there. And also, just to mention as well, for online demonstrations and demonstrations overall, we do have other products representing obese people. So overlays, with the Emerald overlays with my good friend Raul Rodriguez. We look after the global distribution for the Emerald overlays, and they are our most popular sale. So if people don't have enough money in the pot to buy a full mannequin, we can make their existing mannequin look amazing by making them look old, obese, real, make them look like real people. And so they're available now. We'll fit over any Lairdale mannequin, any Gourmand mannequin, and any CAE mannequin,
Any
all
people?
differently measured. And people, yeah.
Yeah.
I was on the on Simcast the other day or a while back, and the guys, Jeremy was walking around with with an emerald overlay on, and it looked amazing. I'm sure the videos will go out online. Yes, they can be worn, and you can kind of freak people out if you don't tell them. They look
Yeah,
so
I think so.
realistic. Yeah,
Well, it's that sim life for you, isn't it? You never know
yeah.
what's around that corner.
Well,
All right.
standardized patients, and representing people properly in the standardized scenarios, I think is really, really important too. You do need to have that wow factor. And the conversation will ensue about what is high fidelity. Is high fidelity looking really realistic, or is high fidelity packed with loads of electronic stuff that hopefully might work?
Yeah,
That's the question.
it is, and it's almost like a sales gimmick, isn't it? But I feel like we're getting into another podcast here, Jake.
Yeah.
With
Oh, dear. We
you
could
know,
talk about that all day.
we could, but I'm definitely interested. Maybe looking to the future and getting some of your emulant masks, and maybe we could wear them for a podcast. Who knows? If we could,
Oh,
if we could maybe pull that off and do a little bit of a video
I would
podcast
love to do
for
that
them
as long as I could be a 65-year-old woman.
Well, then, yeah, that's sold. You've heard it here. All right, Jake. Well, thank you for coming back today. And there we go. We're looking forward to you coming on as a 65-year-old woman on the next podcast.
Thanks, Craig.
No worries. Thank you.
No problem.
And that's it for this episode of the SimTech podcast. A huge thank you to Jake for joining me and giving us a closer look at the R42 Bariatric Manikin. It's clear that this tool, like this, will help pushing simulation forward in a more inclusive and realistic direction. If you want to learn more about the R42 or Simulation Collective, check out the links in the episode description. And if you've got any ideas for future guests, topics, or equipment you'd like to get reviewed, get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe, share the podcast with your fellow SimTechs, and leave a review if you found today's episode helpful. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep simming.